Stay with this, because what follows overturns one of the oldest instincts humans have ever trusted. For thousands of years, survival in the cold has meant one thing: build a fire and keep it alive at all costs. But there have been moments in history where that instinct got people killed. Not slowly, not dramatically, but silently and completely. Entire groups of hardened soldiers, trained to endure the worst conditions on Earth, learned this lesson the hard way. And the ones who survived did so by abandoning the very thing that once guaranteed their safety. There were nights when lighting a fire meant drawing artillery. It's moments when a faint glow could expose a position from miles away. And in sealed shelters, where the cold pressed in from all sides, a single miscalculation could fill the air with a gas you cannot smell, cannot see, and cannot fight. That is where this story begins, not with comfort, but with a problem so unforgiving it forced a complete rewrite of how humans think about heat. What emerged from that pressure was not a new invention, but a rediscovery. A method so simple it seems almost primitive, yet so effective it kept men alive through winters that destroyed entire divisions. It starts with something as ordinary as a brick, but what it represents is far more important. It is a shift in thinking that every serious survivalist needs to understand. To understand why this method mattered, you need to grasp the conditions that created it. The Eastern Front during the Second World War was not just a battlefield, it was an environment that punished weakness instantly. Temperatures plunged far below freezing for months at a time. Fuel supplies vanished or froze solid. Wet wood refused to burn. Even metal machinery failed under the strain of cold. Men operated from dugouts carved into frozen earth, often sealed tightly to avoid detection. Ventilation was minimal. Movement outside risked exposure, frostbite, or worse. Under those conditions, traditional fires became liabilities. Smoke could give away a hidden position. Flames required fuel no one had. And worst of all, poorly ventilated fires produced carbon monoxide, an invisible killer that claimed lives without warning. This was not about staying comfortable. It was about staying functional. Fingers had to move. Weapons had to operate. Bodies had to retain just enough warmth to avoid collapse. And that forced a new question. How do you stay warm without maintaining a fire? Bricks had been around for thousands of years. They built homes, ovens, and fortifications. There was nothing new about the material itself. What changed was how people thought about heat. Instead of asking how to sustain a flame through the night, some soldiers began asking a different question entirely. How do you store heat so it lasts longer than the fire that created it? That shift changed everything. It meant you didn't need a constant flame. You needed a short, intense burst of energy that could be captured and held. A dense brick, heated properly, could absorb that energy and release it slowly over time. This wasn't theory, it was practical physics. Heat is energy, and energy can be stored in mass. Once people started thinking of a brick as a kind of thermal battery, the entire approach to survival in the cold changed. A fire heats the air, and most of that heat rises or escapes. In a small, cold shelter that is inefficient, you lose energy to empty space instead of directing it where it matters. A heated brick works differently, radiates heat directly outward, warms bodies, surfaces, and the immediate environment without wasting energy on airflow. That distinction is critical. It means a small amount of fuel can produce a lasting effect if used correctly. Soldiers learned that even a brief, intense fire, 15 minutes or so, could charge a brick enough to provide hours of steady warmth. Not overwhelming heat, but enough to hold the line against the cold. And in survival, that line is everything. The process was simple, but it required precision and restraint. First came the fire. It's not a long-burning flame, but a concentrated burst. Whatever fuel was available, twigs, scraps, paper, was used efficiently. There was no waste. The brick was placed directly into the heat, absorbing as much energy as possible. This part mattered. A poorly heated brick would fail later when it was needed most. The goal was maximum absorption in minimum time. Then came the critical step. The fire was extinguished completely. No embers left behind. No glowing coals. No smoke. At that point, the heat had been transferred. It was no longer in the flame. It was inside the brick. The brick was then positioned carefully within the shelter, often on a surface that wouldn't be damaged by heat. From there, it radiated warmth slowly and silently through the night. This was not improvisation. It was a system, one that traded continuous risk for controlled, predictable output. Cold kills, but carbon monoxide kills faster and more quietly. It binds to the blood, preventing oxygen from reaching vital organs. There is no warning, no smell, no visible sign. During the war, many soldiers died not from exposure, but from poorly managed fires in enclosed spaces. A flame that seemed harmless could turn deadly hours later. The heated brick method removed that risk entirely. By ending combustion before sleep, it eliminated the source of the danger. There were no fumes, no buildup, no uncertainty. This allowed shelters to remain sealed against the cold without becoming traps. It allowed exhausted men to rest without fear of never waking up. That alone made the method invaluable. What's remarkable is that this wasn't unique to one place or time. Variations of this approach have appeared across cultures for centuries. Indigenous groups in Arctic regions heated stones and placed them beneath sleeping areas to maintain warmth overnight. In Northern Europe, masonry stoves were designed to burn hot and fast, then radiate heat long after the fire died. In parts of Asia, heated clay vessels were used to deliver controlled warmth without continuous combustion. Different environments, same conclusion. Burn quickly, store deeply, release slowly. That consistency across history tells you something important. This is not a trick. It is a fundamental survival principle. A single heated brick will not make a space cozy. It won't replicate modern heating systems. But that was never the goal. Survival hinges on small margins. A few degrees of temperature can determine whether your body maintains core heat or begins to fail, whether your gear functions or freezes, whether you remain alert or slip into dangerous fatigue. The brick method works because it preserves those margins, provides just enough heat to keep systems operating, both mechanical and biological. That is the difference between surviving and surviving well. Not luxury, but stability. Today, people rely heavily on electricity, fuel systems, and complex infrastructure. But when those systems fail, during blackouts, severe weather, or remote travel, the same problem reappears. How do you stay warm when you cannot safely maintain a fire? The answer remains the same. You shift from constant consumption to controlled storage. You use short bursts of energy to create lasting effects. Campers still heat stones at the edge of fires and bring them into tents. Off-grid homes use thermal mass to regulate temperature. Even in urban settings, a heated object can provide hours of safe warmth during a power outage. The materials may change, but the principle does not. In the end, the so-called one-brick heater is not about the brick itself. It is about the mindset behind it. It represents a move away from brute force solutions and toward efficiency, away from constant risk and toward controlled outcomes. It shows that survival often depends less on what you have and more on how you think. Those soldiers did not survive because they had better resources. They survived because they adapted their understanding of heat, energy, and risk. And that is what makes this method timeless. Because when everything else fails, when fuel runs out, when systems collapse, when conditions turn hostile, the people who endure are the ones who understand the fundamentals. Heat can be stored. Energy can be managed. Risk can be reduced. And sometimes the smallest, simplest solution is the one that carries you through the night. If this kind of deep dive into real historical survival methods speaks to you, then you already know this isn't just about the past. These are lessons that carry forward. Subscribe to the channel, share this with someone who takes preparedness seriously, and stay with us as we continue uncovering the strategies that kept people alive when everything else failed.